For 10 long years, she lived as a shadow, a whisper behind borrowed smiles and fabricated calm. Her name was Ryn Ashvale, the quiet librarian of a sleepy Oregon town, a woman wrapped in layers of routine and faint chamomile. Masking a truth buried deep beneath her skin, she was no ordinary woman. She was a silver-furred wolf, caged inside her own bones, silenced since the night her world burned to ash. An omega, the rarest kind, and for a decade she'd hidden in plain sight pretending to be human so she could survive. But fate isn't something you can outrun forever. And for Ryn it came wearing the face of a king, not just any alpha, but Kael Varyn, a ruthless monarch with thunder in his eyes and a presence that shattered every lie she'd built her life on. He wasn't hunting books or stories. He was hunting monsters. But what he found and claimed with one unrelenting, savage act was something more dangerous than any rogue. His mate. The lie she wore for 3,652 days tasted like chamomile and recycled library air. That lie was her armor, her ritual, her cage. It lived in the sharp sting of the lavender-based scent blocker she slathered on every morning, the chemical cocktail that burned her nose but cloaked her true nature. It pulsed in the beta blockers she swallowed to keep her heartbeat flat, so no one would hear the pulse of something wild. She built her sanctuary in the mist-soaked town of Crestwood. The public library was her chapel of quiet, its stillness a balm. Among its shelves, Ryn was invisible, the pale guarded librarian with ash-brown hair pulled into a messy knot and storm-colored eyes that never settled too long on anyone. Niraloon, her barista friend across the street, called her an old soul. Ryn would respond with a faint, sad smile. If only she knew the truth. Old soul, maybe, but not human. Not anymore. Somewhere in the dark corners of her soul, her wolf slept. Restless sleep. Dreams twisted by fire, the scent of blood, and the echoing howls of beasts. 10 years ago, she wasn't Ryn Ashvale. She was a daughter of the Silver Moon Pack heir of Kael Varyn and Era Solon, an omega born under a peaceful banner and cursed for it. Her scent alone could bend alphas to calm, wild honey jasmine under moonlight and the breath of fresh rainfall. A gift that could unite a pack or paint a target on her back. The Blood Moon Wolves came without warning, a savage pack of rogues, led by a brute who craved power more than land. They didn't want resources. They wanted her. A living trophy. A weapon. Her parents died making sure she escaped her mother's final cry was a command to vanish, to hide, to suppress. And she did. She starved her wolf, smothered her scent, lived a life of hushed routine. No crowds, no emotion, no risks. She stayed in a cramped apartment above a shuttered bakery, the scent of stale yeast, oddly comforting. The only real tie she kept was Nira, a bright flicker of human warmth in Ryn's gray world. Another wild Friday night for the fearless Ryn Ashvale. Nira teased, sliding over a steaming mug at the daily grind. The doorbell rang, letting in a rush of October chill. Ryn curled her fingers around the ceramic. "You know me. Life of the party," she murmured dryly. Nira leaned closer, her dark eyes lit with playful fire. "Speaking of parties, Taran Voss from the hardware store was asking about you again. Says he's into your whole mysterious loner thing." Ryn's stomach turned. Intimacy was a luxury she couldn't afford. A relationship meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant danger. "I'm not mysterious, Nira. Just boring." "You're not boring, you're closed off," Nira corrected gently. "It's been 10 years since the accident. Maybe it's time to let someone see who you are." Accident. That lie again. The fabricated car crash. The tale that explained the sorrow in her eyes and the distance in her voice. The guilt clawed at her. But before she could answer, the television in the corner, usually showing some celebrity chef, flickered to breaking news. A reporter stood in the woods just outside of town, expression grim. Authorities remain baffled by the string of animal attacks in the Pacific Northwest, said Sarah Quinn, the anchor. Sheriff Solon Creed is urging caution after a hiker was found mauled near Blackwood Ridge. The wounds suggest a predator of unusual size and aggression. Ryn's blood turned to ice. She knew. Deep down in her bones, this wasn't a bear. It wasn't a cougar. The claw marks, the brutality, it was werewolves. They were getting closer. For weeks now her skin had itched with the hum of something waking. Her wolf long chained was stirring again. It was, sensing them, others like her. Her wolf buried but never dead stirred beneath her skin. "Kinda nuts, huh, Nira?" Loon said, shaking her head. "Probably just some grizzly that wandered too far from its mountain." Ryn Ashvale gave a stiff nod, her throat too tight to answer. She needed to double up on the suppressants. Keep her head down, stay out of the woods just a little longer. Just a little longer. Of staying invisible. But that invisibility was about to vanish. Because the attacks didn't just grab headlines. They drew the attention of the one thing she feared most, the king. 3 days later the storm came, not with rain or thunder, but in the low predatory growl of 3 black SUVs gliding down Crestwood's main street like a warning. Military grade, matte black. Unapologetically ominous. They stopped perfectly aligned in front of the sheriff's office. The town's heartbeat slowed. People peered through cafe windows, their curiosity turning to unease. Ryn was in the history section of the library when it hit her. The air changed. It sizzled sharp electric like ozone before a lightning strike. Her skin prickled. Her wolf snapped awake with a whimper of alarm. Through the tall library window she saw him step out of the first SUV, and everything tilted. He moved with the weight of command and the lethal grace of a creature built for dominance. Simple black jeans, a gray Henley stretched tight across a chest carved from muscle and war. His hair was wild black as ink tousled by wind. His face was carved from stone, severe, beautiful, dangerous. But it was his eyes that gutted her. Storm gray, ageless, authority burned in them. It wasn't just fear that slammed into her, it was recognition. Not just an alpha. Royalty. Even from this far, the scent of his power cut through her defenses. Pine after a storm, stone chilled in shadow a command as sharp as a blade. Kael Varyn, the Alpha King. Her heart pounded against her ribs hard enough to bruise. The beta blockers might as well have been candy. She couldn't stop the spiraling thought. He's here. The king is here. Every instinct inside her screamed in chaos. Submit, run, hide. 2 others flanked him, one man, lean and calculating, the air around him, steady and precise. Corvin Madrek, the beta. The other, a woman built like a blade, her eyes razor-sharp, Liz Renna, the king's enforcer. The trio moved like a single unit, solid, lethal sovereign. They weren't here for the humans. They were here for rogues. Blood moons. Terror coiled cold and sharp in her chest. She stumbled back from the window, knocking over a stack of books. The thud echoed through the quiet. Maven Krell, the head librarian, peered over her glasses. "Everything all right, dear?" "Fine," Ryn rasped, barely audible. "Just clumsy." She dropped to her knees, fingers shaking as she scrambled to gather the fallen books. Her scent, God, her scent. Fear amplified everything. She clenched her eyes shut, forcing herself to focus on the acidic tang of the scent blocker, smeared on her wrists. Hold it together. Cage the wolf. Don't slip. For the next 2 days, Crestwood was a town holding its breath. The king's presence was everywhere. His warriors patrolled the edges of town, questioned. Sheriff Solon Creed prowled the streets like apex predators among sheep. Ryn lived in a constant state of panic. Her heart never stopped racing. She could feel Kael Varyn, his power, like a hum on her skin. She saw him more than once. One evening, as she left the library, he stood across the street speaking with Corvin. His head snapped up. His eyes scanned the street, searching, sensing. For a terrifying second, their eyes met. To him, she was just another face. A woman too plain to remember. But to her, the moment felt like a detonation. Her wolf knew. Her soul knew. She yanked her gaze away, heart shattering in her chest, and all but ran to her apartment. That night, sleep brought no rest. Only memories turned nightmare. She was a child again, trembling in the blood-soaked woods, her omega scent betraying her as a hulking beast with yellow eyes closed in. She heard Arasolan's scream, Ryn Varyn's final roar. She woke, gasping, drenched in cold sweat, the tiny apartment closing in like a trap. She was unraveling. The closer Kael came, the harder it became to keep the wolf buried. Saturday broke her. Nira insisted on dragging her to this town's Founders' Day picnic. "You need some air. You've looked like death warmed over all week," she said, shoving a paper cup of lemonade into Ryn's hands. Ryn agreed, not because she wanted to, but because saying no would draw suspicion. So she slathered on, extra suppressant masking herself in chemical falsehood, and prayed it would be enough. She slathered on another coat of scent-blocking lotion, her palms slippery with the greasy chemical mask. The annual Founders' Day picnic had filled the Central Park with laughter, folding chairs, and homemade pies. But weaving between the crowd, unmistakable in their predatory stillness, were Kael Varyn and his warriors. Ryn Ashvale clung to the edges of the celebration, clutching a cup of lemonade, trying to disappear. Near the ancient oak tree that towered at the park's center, Kael stood like a sentinel. He didn't mingle. He watched. His gaze swept the crowd like a blade sharp and waited with growing frustration. He hadn't found the rogues yet, and patience wasn't one of his virtues. Then it happened. A child's scream pierced the cheerful murmur of the crowd. A boy, no older than 5, had stumbled into the decorative pond, cracking his head on the edge. He vanished beneath the surface without a sound. Panic exploded. Shouts, scrambling feet. No one moved fast enough. But Ryn did. Every instinct she'd buried for 10 years ignited. She dropped her drink and bolted, shoving her way through the crowd without hesitation. The cold water bit into her skin as she dove, her hands sweeping the silt in blind desperation. She found him, small, limp still, and dragged him to the surface. She hauled him onto the grass, the boy's skin blue, unmoving. His mother, Vivian Valea, screamed in helpless horror. But Ryn didn't pause. She tilted his head, cleared his airway, and began CPRO. The rhythm returned to her hands like muscle memory. 1, 2, 3, 4. The crowd blurred away. Her focus locked on the child's fragile chest, her pulse thundering. And in that instant, her restraint shattered. The scent blockers, the mental barriers, the decade of survival obliterated in one raw moment of instinct. Her scent exploded into the air. Wild honey, moonlit jasmine, rain on summer earth. The scent of an omega, undeniable, sacred, and devastating. Across the park, Kael Varyn froze. His head snapped toward her, eyes flaring wide. For days he had hunted for the foul scent of rogues. Instead, the wind brought him something divine, a scent of myth, a scent that screamed mate, and his wolf roared. The world returned to Ryn with the sound of coughing, the child sputtering water, gasping for air. A breathless sigh of relief rolled through the crowd. Vivian scooped up her son, sobbing. Paramedics rushed in, but Ryn barely noticed. Her heart was already breaking. She had slipped. The lie was shattered. Pressure dropped on the park like a collapsing sky. Alpha energy rolled across the field in a suffocating wave. Every wolf within miles would feel it. Her eyes jerked up, locking with Kael's. His storm-gray gaze was no longer cold and observant. It was burning, feral, the look of a predator who had just found his mate. She turned and ran. Nira called after her, confused, but Ryn didn't stop. She tore through the crowd, heart pounding, racing for the only place she might still hide. Her apartment, her meds, her illusion. But it was already too late. Halfway across the field, her lungs burning, a shadow fell over her. A hand unyielding and scorching hot clamped around her arm. She spun back, slamming into the bark of the oak tree. Kael stood before her, his frame a wall of heat and fury. The sheer power radiating off him made her knees buckle. Pine, ozone, rage. The scent of the king seared into her senses. His storm eyes, blazed pupils blown wide. His inner wolf was right beneath the surface, snarling to break free. "What are you?" His voice came low, deep, vibrating through her bones like thunder underfoot. He was so close, the warmth of him soaked into her skin. His eyes dipped to her throat, watching her pulse hammer wildly, then back to her face. He inhaled slow and deep. The tremble that shook his body was primal. Her scent wasn't just alluring, it was sanctuary, and it cracked his control like dry glass. "I don't know what you mean," she whispered. The lie tasted like ash. "Liar," he snarled. "That scent. That's not possible." Omegas were wiped out during the purge. Kael Varyn's grip tightened, not enough to break her bones, but enough to make his dominance unmistakably clear. A shiver of primal fear shot through Ryn Ashvale, and with it came another pulse of her Omega scent. This one laced in raw panic, a silent cry for mercy. It broke him. His control, already fraying from the rogue hunt, snapped under the shock of finding what shouldn't exist, his mate. A low growl erupted from his chest, animalistic and violent. His face twisted his canines, extending eyes darkening as the beast inside surged forward. The king's shadow, wild, ancient, untamed, had surfaced. Before Ryn could cry out, he struck. He dipped his head, and his not quite human teeth grazed the tender junction of her neck and shoulder. It wasn't an attack. It was a claim. And then he bit down. Lightning surged through her nerves. Pain exploded. Her scream tore from her throat as fire seared across her flesh. His teeth sank deeper, anchoring a bond meant to be sacred. Binding, eternal, a brutal mark, a connection forged not in ceremony, but in chaos. It slammed into her mind like a wrecking force. His rage, his disbelief, his possessiveness crashing through her like a tidal wave. And then, hell broke loose. From the tree line they emerged, 4 massive wolves. Their coats matted their eyes, burning yellow with madness. Rogues. Blood moons. Drawn to the sudden bloom of Omega scent like vultures to blood. Kael ripped away from Ryn, his roar deafening and furious blood on his lips, her blood. His storm-gray eyes blazed as they locked onto the threat. His voice cracked like thunder across the park. Corvin-less. His warriors responded instantly, shifting mid-run into monstrous wolves, one charcoal gray, the other dark sable. The crowd erupted in screams. Joy turned to terror. The peaceful picnic became a battlefield. Ryn couldn't move. Her hand clutched the fresh wound on her shoulder, blood soaking through her shirt. The pain was immense, but worse was the raw, jagged bond flooding her head, a link not yet complete. Thrumming with the Alpha King's fury, one of the rogues broke from the group, hungry, desperate, and lunged straight at her. Not the king, not the guards, the Omega, the prize. Kael moved like lightning. He met the rogue mid-air, a flash of teeth and strength. Bones snapped. The wolf yelped and crumpled. Kael tossed the body like a rag doll, but his eyes were still wild, caught between protecting his mate and slaughtering the rest. And Ryn saw her chance. While Kael turned toward the other 3 rogues, circling his warriors, she ran. Pain scorched her shoulder. Her vision blurred. But fear and adrenaline propelled her. She didn't stop to think. She ran from the rogues. She ran from the king. She ran from the shattered lie she'd worn for 10 years. The mark on her neck burned like a brand. A chain. A curse. She burst through the door of her apartment, breath heaving. The lock clicked shut behind her, a lock that wouldn't stop him. She knew that, but it was the only sanctuary she had left. She stumbled into the bathroom trembling. Her shoulder throbbed. Her skin was fire. Her soul worse. The bond wasn't whole, but it had formed just enough to let him in. She could feel him. His fury at the rogues. His frustration aimed at her. Mine. 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 The word wasn't hers. It echoed in her skull, his desire like a fist tightening around her. She gripped the sink, looked up. Her reflection was unrecognizable. Pale, soaked, bloodied. Her silver-streaked hair clung to her cheeks, her gray eyes wide and feral. She yanked down the collar of her shirt. The mark throbbed, a jagged, angry bite already starting to heal unnaturally fast. But it was wrong. Not clean, not ceremonial, not sacred, just raw, broken, incomplete. He had been interrupted. He had marked her, but the bond hadn't sealed. Maybe. Just maybe. There was still time. She tore open the cabinet, hands scrambling for scent suppressants, for blockers, anything that could bury her again. Anything that could make her invisible. But in her bones, she already knew. Nothing could hide her now. It was pointless. And deep down, Ryn Ashvale knew it. An Omega mark wasn't a secret. It was a siren. Every wolf within 100 miles could feel it pulsing through the air like a signal fire. There was no going back. No more hiding. The echoes of his fury, the snarls and chaos from the park had faded. Now came the silence, the kind that warned of a predator closing in. He was done with the rogues, and he was coming for her. She didn't have to wait long. There was no knock, no splintering crack of wood. Her apartment door simply disintegrated, blown from its hinges by raw, unchecked power. Kael Varyn stepped through, filling the doorway like a living storm. His frame was rigid, his presence overwhelming. The battle outside was over, but the violence still radiated off him in waves. His storm-colored eyes found her, instantly locking her in place. "You ran," he said, voice low and calm, too calm. A growl waiting to strike beneath the surface. Ryn backed away until her legs hit the edge of the couch. You attacked me. You branded me. I claimed you," he corrected, stepping inside. The small apartment suddenly felt like a cage. His gaze swept across the room, the second-hand bookshelves, the sagging chair, the wilting plant in the windowsill. His lip curled. "I claimed what is mine, and you won't run again." His Beta Corvin Madrek appeared behind him, face tight with tension. "Your Majesty? Perhaps a softer hand. She's my mate, Corvin." Kael snapped, never breaking eye contact with Ryn. She lied. She hid. She ran. The time for soft is over. He closed the distance in 2 long strides. Ryn flinched, but the strike never came. He stopped inches from her, his hand hovering just above her wounded shoulder. Heat rolled off his skin. She could feel the energy in him, barely restrained. 10 years, he murmured, eyes searching hers. And for a flicker of a second, the fury cracked, revealing confusion, pain, disbelief. "You hid for 10 years. The truth caught in her throat. She couldn't tell him. Couldn't say she was the last of the Silver Moons. That she had watched her pack burn because of what she was. To trust this a king who had stolen her choice with his teeth was impossible. "I'm not your mate," she whispered. "I'm nobody." A rough laugh left him. "You're the first Omega seen in a generation. Your scent is a beacon. It'll bring every power-hungry rogue out of the shadows. You think you're nobody." He leaned in, voice sharp. "You're the most coveted creature on this continent right now, and you are mine." He turned toward Corvin. Pack her things. Corvin hesitated. Now, whatever's essential. You can't do this. Ryn's voice cracked defiant. This is my home, my life. Your human life is over, Kael said flatly. You've spent 10 years in a prison of your own making. He stepped closer. Now, you're in mine. The words struck like a blow. Corvin shot her a glance of quiet regret before moving swiftly. Gathering a bag, clothes, her wallet, and a worn paperback of Wuthering Heights from the nightstand. He ignored the rest, the photos, the tiny keepsakes. The pieces of the woman she'd tried to be. They erased Ryn Ashvale, the librarian, and took her to a fortress, glass and steel, perched like a predator above the edge of town, the king's temporary base. Spacious, expensive, soulless, a gilded cage. Guards stood at every door. Escape was fantasy. For days, it was a standoff. Kael demanded the truth. She gave him nothing but silence and glares that cut. Every time he tried to come near, the fractured bond between them screamed raw, sharp, unfinished. His presence scraped against her soul like broken metal. His frustration thickened the air. Through the bond she could feel it, a wildfire of fury, a silent ache of something he didn't know how to name. He had found his destined mate, only to see her recoil from him in horror. Corvin tried to soften the edge between them. He brought meals she barely touched, spoke gently, rationally. He is the King Ryn, he said one afternoon, placing a tray on the coffee table of the sterile sitting room. But he's also a man who just found the one soul meant to complete his. He paused. This is tearing him apart, too. She didn't answer. She stared at the untouched food, her hands curled into fists. Difficult, no. This was war. She let out a bitter laugh, voice frayed at the edges. He hunted me down like prey and branded me like I was property. He ripped away everything I built. Don't lecture me about what's difficult for him. The mark, Corvin Madrek began carefully choosing his words, was instinctual. After 10 years of suppression, your scent hit him like a lightning strike. His wolf reacted before his mind caught up. It wasn't meant to frighten you. Then what was it meant to do? She snapped. To protect you. Corvin replied without hesitation. The blood moons in the park were just scouts. Their Alpha Drex tell her he's the one responsible for the attacks across the region. He's ruthless. And once he senses you exist, he will come for you. The King's Mark is the only thing keeping him from finding you first. That name, Drex Taller, the syllables hit her like a knife made of ice. Her pulse faltered. Her memories flashed him. Younger then, always hovering, friendly to the point of discomfort. Eyes that lingered too long, smiles that never reached his soul. Had he been there the night the silver moons were slaughtered? Corvin's sharp gaze picked up the flicker in hers. You know him, he said gently. Ryn shut down instantly, walls slamming back into place. I don't know anyone, she said flatly. Her silence was impenetrable, but Kael's patience wasn't. That evening he marched into her suite, his fury a thundercloud in the room. This ends now. His voice cracked like a whip. You won't talk. You won't eat. You won't accept who you are. He pointed directly at her. We're leaving. We're going to the capital, my home. The council will get the truth out of you one way or another. The threat dangled razor sharp and heavy. The capital. His seat of power. A fortress no one escaped. Her gilded cage was about to get a lot grander and infinitely more inescapable. The journey to the Royal Pack's capital, a sanctuary hidden in the depths of the Cascade Mountains, passed in silence. Ryn sat stiffly in the back seat of the SUV, flanked by Lys Renna, the King's Blade. Outside, towering pines blurred past. Inside, the pressure of Kael's presence in the front seat suffocated her. He hadn't said a word since declaring the move, but the bond between them buzzed, wounded, raw, unsettled. His frustration seeped through it. like static heat. When they arrived, Silverwood wasn't what she expected. No glass towers or sterile buildings. It was a valley carved from ancient earth stone timber and sky twined together in a city that breathed power. A great citadel of obsidian and ironwood loomed over a community of homes built to echo the terrain. It was a fortress, and it pulsed with life. Every stone vibrated with the presence of the most powerful pack on the continent. Ryn's wolf stirred, unwillingly, moved by the weight of it all. This wasn't a cage. It was a kingdom. And still she hated it. They didn't toss her into a cell, but they didn't grant her freedom either. A luxury suite high in the citadel became her prison. The wide windows offered a sweeping view of the valley. A beautiful lie. Corvin delivered the news formally. The king has summoned the council of elders. They'll arrive shortly. His voice dipped in warning. I would advise you to cooperate, Ryn. They aren't as patient. Her heart thudded. The elders, wolves who carried ancient magic mind speakers, truth seers. They could unravel her memories like threads. Strip away the years she had hidden. Show every wound. She wasn't ready, but time didn't care. An hour later, they arrived, 3 ancient wolves, cloaked in power, so deep it didn't shimmer or crackle. It rested like a storm on the horizon. The eldest, a woman named Astra Nolwyn, stepped forward. Her eyes, icy blue, almost white, pierced Ryn like blades. Leave us, Astra said softly, but it wasn't a request. Kael hesitated for only a second, his possessiveness flaring, but tradition won out. He nodded once, sharp and tense, and left. Corvin and the guards followed, the heavy doors shut behind them with finality. You don't need to be afraid, Astra said, voice warm and sure. We're not here to hurt you. Then why am I a prisoner? Ryn whispered, her voice trembling. You're not. Came the low reply from the second elder, Dre Calder, tall and carved from stone. You're a miracle. We believed your kind were gone forever. Astra Nolwyn's pale eyes locked with hers. Tell us your name. Your real name. It wasn't a command. It was something gentler, an invitation. And for the first time, Ryn Ashvale saw not judges or threats before her, but something older and wearier. A fragile hope behind ancient eyes. The secret she'd carried like a stone in her chest, heavy rotting, suddenly begged to be released. Ryn, she breathed. Of the Silver Moon pack. The air in the chamber shifted, a collective inhale, soft and reverent. The elders exchanged looks, the kind that passed understanding without words. The daughter of Kael Varyn and Era Solin, Dre Calder murmured. We believed every last one of you perished in the blood moon slaughter. They died to protect me. The words scraped her throat raw as she said them. They told me to hide who I was. Astra gave a slow, mournful nod. They did what any mother and father would have done. But your return now. It's no accident. The fates don't make mistakes. What do you mean? Ryn asked, wary. There's a prophecy, Astra said, her voice shifting deeper, ancient. When the age of blood darkens the sky and the packs fracture beneath a broken moon, a lost Omega shall rise. Her scent shall guide. Her heart shall bind. Ryn blinked. Bind what she will soothe, the shadowed king, and reunite the sundered packs beneath a new dawn. Astra said each word, a note in some long-forgotten song. She will bring balance where there is none. Ryn stared. That sounds like a bedtime story. Most prophecies do, Dre said darkly. Until they come true. The age of blood is now. Astra added. Packs are turning on each other. Rogues like the blood moons multiply. Centuries-old alliances are cracking. Ryn's voice dropped. And the shadowed king. A beat of silence. Astra's voice dropped to a hush. Our alpha king, Kael Varyn. He carries a burden no other wolf could survive. His bloodline is the strongest and the darkest. There's a beast inside him, raw, brutal, unrelenting. It's what makes him a warrior without equal. But it also threatens to consume him. We call it the king's shadow. Ryn's mind reeled. The bite, the savage heat, the way his eyes had gone feral when he found her. It wasn't just instinct. It was recognition. The prophecy says the Omega will soothe the shadow, she whispered. The meaning settled over her like cold fog. Her scent wasn't just rare, it was power, a calming force, a tether, something that could balance an alpha who lived on the edge of destruction. You are the key, child, Astra said, her voice full of tremulous hope. If the bond completes, it will do more than unite you, it will save him. It will anchor his shadow. And together you could pull the packs from the brink. It was too much. Yesterday she'd been worried about missing catalog reports at the library. Now she was the linchpin for the survival of an entire species, if she bound herself to the same man who had stolen her freedom with his teeth. No, she said, voice cracking. No, I can't. I won't. I never asked for this. Destiny doesn't ask, Astra said softly. It simply is. When she was escorted back to her chambers, the elders were gone. She found Kael Varyn standing near the window, his frame rigid, his presence still, filling the air like smoke. The rage she'd once felt through the bond was muted, now replaced by something heavier, quieter. You know, he said. It wasn't a question. She didn't face him. They told me about the prophecy, about your shadow. For the first time, the tether between them trembled with something unfamiliar. Not anger, not demand, vulnerability, a curse I've carried since birth. Kael said, voice gravel soft. A weapon I've learned to wield but never trust. She turned slowly. Her gray eyes met his, and for the first time, she didn't just see a king. She saw a man, burdened, haunted, broken in places she couldn't name. When you bit me, she asked, her voice barely audible, was it you or was it the shadow? His jaw clenched. He looked away, shoulders tense. When your scent hit me, there was no separation between the man and the wolf. There was only you and one certainty, you were mine. When he looked back, his eyes held nothing but raw, painful truth. I know you hate me for what I did, he said. I stole your choice. But the moment I sent you away, Ryn, I lost my choice too. Kael Varyn's words hung between them, fragile and sharp like glass stretched across a canyon of rage and fear. Her hatred hadn't vanished. It still burned hot beneath her ribs. But now something far more dangerous stirred beneath it. Understanding, and worse, empathy. The prophecy had shattered her reality. She was no longer a prisoner, but a piece of fate, and everything in the Silverwood Citadel had shifted because of it. No longer met with suspicion, Ryn now walked halls lined with reverent stares. Whispers followed her, not of fear, but hope. A suffocating, crushing hope. Kael changed too. The brutal alpha who had claimed her by force had softened into something else entirely, a ruler bearing a nation on his shoulders. He came not to command but to explain. To show her the world, he ruled the politics, the fractured alliances, the rising chaos of the blood moons, the burden he had never asked to carry. She listened, her walls still in place. But through their broken bond she felt him. The exhaustion, the weight, the loneliness of being a king everyone feared, but no one truly knew. Her hate frayed into threads, and in its place grew something far more dangerous, respect. Still, the incomplete bond between them throbbed like an open wound, a reminder of what she had not yet accepted. To complete it would be to surrender. And Ryn Ashvale wasn't ready to surrender anything. Her nights gave her no peace. That evening, sleep twisted into something colder, darker. A voice slithered through the dreamscape, familiar, poisonous. Ryn. Little Omega. I know you're listening. She found herself in a dream, an ash-covered forest beneath a sickly green moon. Shadows moved between twisted trees, and from them emerged a ghost from her past. Drex Taylor, the Blood Moon Alpha. His yellow eyes gleamed with malice as he stepped closer, the smirk on his face coiled like a snake. "It's been a long time," he sneered. "I can almost smell you now. He hides you well, doesn't he?" Ryn's breath caught in her throat. "You killed them," she whispered. "My family. My pack." "They were weak," Drex said with a shrug. "Fools who didn't understand the prize they had." His form shimmered, briefly younger, familiar. "Don't you remember me, Ryn?" he said, voice dripping with venom. "I was one of you. I was CrimsonMoon." Her heart stilled. He was the traitor. He hadn't just taken part in the massacre, he had engineered it. "Kael's filled your head with lies," Drex hissed, circling her. "Prophecies. Destiny. Nonsense. He marked you to chain his beast. You're not a queen to him, you're a leash. I'm giving you a choice. Real freedom. Stand beside me, and we will tear down the world and rebuild it under the rule of the strong." "He's the king," she murmured. It was barely a defense. Drex laughed, a sound like knives scraping glass. "He's a caged little Omega. I'm the one opening the door. Think about it. When the full moon rises, I'll bring fire to his walls. Come to me. Or I'll drag you from the rubble." The dream shattered like crystal. Ryn woke, gasping, chest heaving, the bond with Kael flaring like wildfire. But the fear in her chest had been replaced by something colder. Clarity. She wasn't just facing a monster. She was facing a monster born from her own bloodline. She ran. Barefoot, breathless, she darted through the Citadel's silent halls. This time she wasn't fleeing from Kael. She was running to him. The guards at his door didn't stop her. They stepped aside, recognizing the look in her eyes. She burst into his chambers. Kael stood on the balcony, silver moonlight catching the sharp lines of his face. When he turned, the steel in his expression melted the instant he saw her. "To Taylor," she gasped. He was in my head. He's from my pack. He's coming. On the full moon." Kael crossed the room in a blink. Hands braced on her shoulders, eyes burning with fury. She recounted the dream, her voice trembling. But Kael didn't roar. He stilled. A cold, quiet fury settled over him, the kind that only came from a predator about to go to war. "He will not touch you," he growled. "I'll burn his army to ash." The raw certainty in his voice, unshakable, unbreakable, made her chest tighten. This wasn't about hatred anymore. It wasn't about choice. It was about survival. She swallowed hard, voice low but clear. The bond. The prophecy. You'll need it complete to fight him. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't love. It was resolve. The decision of a warrior. Her first true act, not as prey, but as a queen. Kael Varyn stood before her gaze, softening, a flicker of fragile hope in his storm-gray eyes. He lowered his head, slowly, deliberately, giving her every chance to pull away. "Are you sure?" he murmured, his lips hovering just above the scarred, half-healed mark on her shoulder. "I'm sure," Ryn Ashvale replied, meeting his eyes without flinching. This time there was no pain, as his teeth sank into her skin with reverence, not violence. A rush of golden heat flooded her senses. The torn, jagged bond between them knit itself, whole, seamless, eternal. His mind opened completely to hers, and she felt everything. The terrifying gravity of his shadow, now stilled by her presence. The staggering, soul-deep love he'd kept shackled for years. They weren't two anymore. They were one. And war was coming. The next 48 hours moved like a storm. Silverwood shifted from a village to a war fortress, its air charged with the promise of blood. At the heart of it all stood Ryn and Kael, newly and fully bonded, commanding side by side. Kael moved with a new calm, his raging beast anchored. Ryn stood taller too, no longer a hunted omega, no longer a hidden secret. Now she was his walkie. At the war table she sat beside him, and when seasoned warriors debated strategy, it was Ryn's voice, steady clear, that cut through the noise. Drex Talor isn't a conqueror, she said. He's a traitor. He won't storm the gates. He'll come through the old silver mine beneath the western ridge. Some commanders exchanged skeptical looks, but Kael didn't hesitate. Corvin, take your best and lock down the ridge. The rest of you prepare to fight on two fronts. The full moon rose cold and bright like a blade in the sky, and just as Ryn predicted, the first wave came from the west. Blood moons poured from the tunnels, fangs bared howls splitting the night. But they didn't find an undefended breach. They ran into Corvin Madrick and his elite guard already waiting. The valley exploded in war. From the battlements, Ryn and Kael watched the chaos unfold. His instincts screamed to lock her away, but one look into her eyes, steel forged in fire, silenced that instinct. I stand with you, she said, placing a hand on his arm. The warmth of her touch surged through the bond like a beacon. I'm not something to be protected. I'm your equal. Kael nodded, pride shining behind his wolf's gaze. But the rogue army was vast, rabid. Their psychic link, a storm of bloodlust and madness, threatened to shake Kael's forces. Their unity was a lie, Ryn realized. Not forged in trust, but domination. She closed her eyes and reached inward, not to calm them, but to break them. She reached into the tangled minds of the blood moon fighters and whispered doubt. He'll leave you to die. Your pawn's nothing more. He keeps the omega for himself. You bleed for scraps. One by one, the enemy's rhythm broke. Infighting erupted. Suspicion spread like rot through their ranks. Drex Talor felt it. From atop a cliff, he snarled, shifting into his monstrous wolf form, and bellowed in fury. His gaze locked on Ryn. He knew. He charged the citadel walls, his personal guard behind him. He's coming for you, Kael growled. Stay here. He leapt from the wall mid-air, his body shifted into a massive direwolf cloaked in midnight fur and silver fire. He hit the battlefield like a hammer, colliding with Drex in a shockwave of fury and steel. Alpha versus alpha. Claws clashed, fangs tore, but Drex was cunning. As Kael struck, he feinted, drawing attention just long enough for one of his guards to scale the wall toward Ryn. But Lys Renna was faster. She intercepted, fangs, bared blades flashing. The threat never reached Ryn, yet it worked. The distraction gave Drex his opening. He drove his claws deep into Kael's shoulder. Kael roared, a sound of pure agony echoing through the valley. Ryn staggered, feeling the pain tear through their bond like a burning lash, and beneath it his shadow stirred, hungry, enraged, dangerous. Kael, no. She cried across their connection. Stay with me. I'm safe. Focus. Her words cut through the haze. The bloodlust recoiled. Clarity returned. As Drex lunged again, Kael turned, dodging at the last second. He twisted his massive form, using the rogue's own speed against him, and sank his jaws into Drex's throat. A crunch. A final guttural whimper. And it was over. The traitor fell, his body lifeless in the dust. The remaining rogues saw their alpha fall, and their will broke. They ran. Every last one of them fled into the night, vanishing into the trees like smoke. Victory had come, but the cost of it had only just begun. Victory was theirs. Kael Varyn shifted back into his human form, staggering as his knees buckled under the weight of blood loss and exhaustion. He was no longer the battle-forged Alpha King, but a man wounded and trembling. Ryn Ashvale didn't wait. She flew down from the battlements, sprinting across the blood-soaked ground. When she reached him, she didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around him, heedless of the blood, the dirt, or the chaos still swirling in the valley. He collapsed into her embrace, burying his face in her hair. His body shook not from pain, but from the gravity of what had just been survived. "It's over," she whispered into his ear, her voice low, fierce, steady. She poured her strength into their bond, wrapping around him like light in the dark. Kael pulled back just enough to meet her gaze. His storm-gray eyes shimmered, not with power but with something deeper, raw, soulful, love. "No," he murmured, voice hoarse, cracked. "It's just beginning. My Lunar, my queen." And in that shattered battlefield, surrounded by blood and ash, they stood not just as a bonded pair, but as something more. A force, a future, a king and queen reborn from war. The girl who once hid behind books and scent blockers had become something unstoppable. The ghost who'd once whispered through library aisles in the quiet corners of a forgotten town now stood tall in the heart of a kingdom. Ryn's journey had never truly been about just finding a mate. It was about finding herself, about reclaiming the power she had buried for so long and discovering that the thing she feared most about herself was the very thing that made her unbreakable. She hadn't just tamed the shadow within Kael. She had stood beside it, faced it, balanced it, not as a submissive, but as his equal, his anchor, his partner in building the dawn of a new era. Their story is more than prophecy and fate. It's a reminder the cages we build to protect ourselves are often the very things that keep us from becoming who we're meant to be. So now, it's your turn. What are you still locking away inside yourself? What power are you afraid to set free if you were swept up in the bond between Ryn and Kael? Don't let this story end here. Tap that like button. Share this with a friend who loves tales of destiny, fire, and fierce love. And hit subscribe for more epic stories that will ignite your soul and leave you breathless. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey. Thank you for listening. The story continues where your courage begins.